town of Red Hollow had seen many hangings, but none had drawn a crowd like this one. People came from miles around, not because they hated the woman, but because they were afraid. Fear had a way of turning decent folks into silent witnesses. The gallows stood at the edge of town, rough wood darkened by old blood and weather. The noose swayed slightly in the hot wind, like it already knew what it was meant to do. Mary Caldwell stood below it, her hands tied, her dress dusty and torn. She was not a criminal by nature. She had been a schoolteacher before her husband died in a ranch fire. After that, life had pushed her into corners she never imagined. Now the sheriff claimed she had helped a gang rob a payroll wagon. She kept saying she was innocent, but in Red Hollow, a woman's word meant little against a man with a badge. Sheriff Grimes stood tall, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. He had already made up his mind. To him, this hanging was not just justice. It was a message. The town had been restless, and he wanted fear to bring order. He read the charge out loud, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. No one spoke up. Not a single soul. Mary looked out over the faces, searching for even one person who might believe her. She saw pity in a few eyes, curiosity in many, and fear in most. But no courage. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. She whispered a prayer, not for rescue but for strength to face what was coming. At the edge of the crowd stood Jacob Turner, a widowed cowboy with dust on his boots and years of grief in his eyes. He had buried his wife 2 winters ago, after sickness took her slow and cruel. Since then he had lived quiet, keeping to his ranch and his memories. He had no children, no close family left, just empty rooms and long nights. Jacob had known Mary. Not well, but enough to know she was kind. She had once helped his wife when she was too weak to stand, bringing soup and sitting by the bed. Jacob never forgot that. When he heard she had been arrested, something in him felt wrong. He didn't believe she was the type to run with outlaws, but in this town belief didn't matter much. As the rope was placed around Mary's neck, Jacob felt his chest tighten. The sound of the noose sliding against her dress made something snap inside him. He stepped forward without fully knowing why. His boots hit the dirt hard, louder than he expected. Heads turned. Murmurs spread. "Wait," Jacob said, his voice rough but clear. Sheriff Grimes looked at him with annoyance. "This ain't your business, Turner." Jacob swallowed. His hands trembled slightly, but he kept them at his sides. "She's innocent." Grimes snorted. "You got proof?" Jacob shook his head. "No, but I know her. She ain't no outlaw." "That don't mean a thing," Grimes said, and stepped back. Mary turned her head and saw Jacob. Her eyes filled with tears, not of hope, but of gratitude. Someone, at least, was standing for her. Jacob took another. "Step forward." "If you need someone to hang," he said slowly, "I'll take her place." The crowd gasped. A wave of shocked whispers rolled through Red Hollow. Even Sheriff Grimes looked taken aback. "What did you just say?" Grimes asked. "I said I'll take her place," Jacob repeated. "If you're so sure someone needs to pay, let it be me." Grimes stared at him, trying to decide if he was bluffing or mad. "You ain't charged with nothing." "Then charge me," Jacob said. "Say I helped her. Say whatever you want." Mary cried out, "No, Jacob, don't." He turned to her, his voice softer. "You don't deserve this." Grimes felt the crowd shifting. Some faces now showed doubt. Others showed confusion. He didn't like losing control. "This is foolish," he said. "You're willing to die for a woman you barely know?" Jacob nodded. "I'm willing to die so an innocent woman don't." There was a long silence. The wind kicked up dust around their boots. Grimes clenched his jaw. Hanging Jacob might cause more trouble than he wanted. People respected Jacob, even if he kept to himself. Killing him could turn the town against the badge. Before Grimes could answer, a voice came from the back. "Wait!" An old man pushed through the crowd. It was Thomas Reed, a retired stage driver. His face was pale, his hands shaking. "I saw something," Thomas said. "The night of the payroll robbery. I saw 2 men near the creek. They weren't Mary. One of them had a limp. The other wore a black duster." The crowd buzzed again. Grimes's eyes narrowed. "Why didn't you say this before?" "I was scared," Thomas admitted. "Those men looked dangerous, but I can't let this woman die for something she didn't do." More murmurs followed. Another man spoke up, then another. Small details came out, things that didn't match the sheriff's story. The crowd was no longer silent. Grimes felt the power slipping from his hands. His voice rose. Enough! This town needs order. Jacob stepped closer. Order ain't the same as justice. Grimes looked around and realized he was outnumbered by doubt. Reluctantly, he raised his hand. Untie her, he said. The rope was loosened. Mary nearly collapsed, her legs weak. Jacob caught her before she fell. For the first time, he held her steady, not as a stranger, but as someone whose life was now tied to his in a deeper way. Mary sobbed into his shoulder. You were ready to die for me. Jacob looked down at her. I've already lost everything once. I wasn't about to watch someone else lose everything for no reason. The town slowly dispersed, quieter than before. The gallows stood empty, the noose hanging useless in the wind. In the days that followed, the real outlaws were caught. Thomas's description helped track them down. They confessed. Mary was officially cleared, but the experience left scars. Nightmares came. Loud noises made her flinch. The memory of the rope never fully left her. Jacob invited her to stay at his ranch for a while, just until she got back on her feet. At first she hesitated, but she had nowhere else to go. The town still looked at her with mixed eyes. Life at the ranch was simple. Early mornings, chores, quiet meals, long sunsets. Slowly, Mary found peace in the routine. Jacob never pushed. He gave her space, respect, and safety. At night, sometimes they sat on the porch saying little. Silence felt easier than words, but in that silence something gentle grew. Not fast, not forced, just two broken people finding comfort in shared understanding. One evening, Mary spoke softly. Why did you really do it? Jacob stared out at the land. When my wife was sick, most folks stayed away. You didn't. You treated her like she mattered. I figured if I could give even half of that back to you, it was worth it. Mary wiped her eyes. You gave me more than half. You gave me my life. Seasons passed. Mary grew stronger. Laughter returned in small pieces. Jacob found himself smiling again, something he hadn't done in years. The ranch no longer felt so empty. One quiet morning, Mary stood beside him, watching the sunrise. I don't know what my future looks like, she said, but I know I wouldn't be here without you. Jacob nodded. I don't know what mine looks like either, but maybe we don't have to face it alone. She looked at him, not with fear this time, but with hope. He took her hand gently, giving her the choice. She didn't pull away. In a town where a rope had almost ended her life, a single act of courage had given her a new one. And for a widowed cowboy who thought his heart was buried with his wife, standing up for a woman on a gallows had quietly brought him back to life.